I know, it's terrible.
We're free!
I get my life back. So
wow, tell us how you really feel.
I'm gonna sleep.
And go back to organizing.
Yeah.
Local.
Alright, if everyone wants to be ready to listen to Sonja, it was amazing going to deliver our speech. I just wanted to say thank you everybody for coming out and being here all of the 3 days or as many days as you were here watching. And it was a really good conference. It was a lot of work to put together, and I am super proud of everyone from East Bay Board for coming together and pulling this off. Turns out East Bay Board is actually really good at organizing things.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody from East Bay Board who's been doing that, and it's been great. And I'm going to stop hogging the mic and hand it over to Sonja.
Oh.
Victoria.
Sorry.
Help you.
Okay, so let's put it there. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks so much for this time and space to talk to you. So after the talk will be some recognitions, and you'll finally learn who finally won for mascot. So if anybody's bored or whatever, don't wander out, because I know that's the thing you really want to hear. So when I started putting this together, I thought to myself, I realized that when I'm watching other people talk, the thing I'm most interested in is their personal story. Especially here, because I know I'm interested in zoning and planning and city building, but still, even after 3 years, even though I've met so many other people that are also passionate, there's still part of me that's like, this is a really weird topic, like why do you care? So that's why I'm always interested to hear about that. And also, because the thing is that we've talked a lot about how to communicate with people who don't agree with us. I actually think that we should really always be focusing on how to activate people who already agree with us. I mean, you guys are organizers. You actually know that's like the first commandment of all organizing. But the reality is that we are not really, it's some combination of personality and values, experience, lived experience, and then sometimes the right data point at the right time that convinces us. But really our experience and values is what does the most. And so, I think it's important for us to think about what in our personal story makes us pro-housing, and also realize that when we're talking to people who aren't, they're so convinced because they also have some personal experience that leads them to feel sure that they're totally right. That's why I titled my talk, Why I'm So Sure I'm Right. Anyway, so for me personally, what this is a, Google Maps. This is the block I grew up on in Germantown, Philadelphia. And on this block, so this, being 8 stories, is technically high-rise public housing. Although some people think high-rise, 8 stories is too short. It's owned by the Housing Authority. This is actual public housing. Under this tree, you can't see, this is like a halfway house for recovering male drug addicts, in their 20s. This is actually a public school. The state of Pennsylvania bought it from a private school. There's a doctor's office. This is a private nonprofit subsidized low-income senior housing. These 2 houses were monster homes when they were built, but then they've since been broken up into 6 apartments each. And then these are twins. This is a twin. Oh, this is an apartment building, a 4-story apartment building with 32 apartments. And then my house is the only detached single-family house on the block. Don't tell anyone.
And your property values are very low.
That besides a marijuana dispensary, the block I grew up on contains every single type of thing that people are sure are going to ruin their neighborhoods and ruin their lives. And so this is from the cradle. You can imagine, I didn't even find out the zoning existed until I was well into my teens, and I was very surprised. I was shocked, because why would you outlaw all this stuff that worked out perfectly fine? I could hardly imagine it. Next. Oh yeah, so there was another thing that I feel very privileged to have had a lived experience that let me in, you know, it's a mainstream idea that I knew wasn't true because of my experience. So this is a picture of Philadelphia, and you can see it's kind of shaped like a Y. And my neighborhood, this star means nothing. The place I grew up is like kind of around here. But like, keep that shape in mind for a second. So this is a, you know, race. This green is black people, and orange is Hispanic, and then blue is white. It's a pretty segregated city. And again, so I grew up like right around here. And I liked my neighborhood. I thought it was a good neighborhood. But my whole life, when I told people where I lived, people would say, oh, Germantown, that's a bad neighborhood. And first of all, that's very rude. I can't believe that people just naturally will say that to each other in conversation. But second of all, I mean, I eventually asked my mom, like, why do people think our neighborhood is bad? Like, we live in Germantown, not Nicetown. And Nicetown was the next neighborhood over that was actually bad. And my mom was like, Sonja, they don't know. Like, they've never been to any of these neighborhoods. To them, it's all just one big black neighborhood. So, you know, and I realized that if I hadn't grown up in a black neighborhood and hadn't, like, witnessed people who had no idea telling me that it was a bad neighborhood, knowing that it was good, then I wouldn't know either. You know, I don't know, you just take for granted. People are like, oh, it's a good neighborhood, it's a bad neighborhood, you've never experienced it. I have more pictures, I kind of do want to have the pictures.
Riff, Sonja.
I want to riff. Like, moment of silence. I was raised Quaker, so we had a lot of moment of silences.
Are you moving? My laptop got too hot.
Oh.
It was just really excited. It was so happy.
It was also incensed by this prejudice.
It was like,
against-
what is this? No, this is bullshit.
And it's really true. I mean, black people and white people, equally, you know, all things being equal, you know, two different neighborhoods will judge the black neighborhood to be not as good, which is one of the things that devalues black land. You know, when you see these charts about how, you know, the net worth of white people, the net worth of black people, a big part of that is that black people just don't own as much. But the other part is that if you're black, conditional on that, likely you own property in a black neighborhood, and just regular prejudice devalues, you know, your property. Even though a lot of those neighborhoods really are the best. They're like well connected to transit, you know, they have beautiful housing stock.
While we're ripping, I'll second that.
What?
Atlanta has pretty high home ownership rates, even amongst black families. But after the Great Recession, you saw like the home values of white neighborhoods kind of rebound where they were, whereas the home values in well-to-do black neighborhoods have like continued to like slide down to sort of like maybe like 60 to 70% of their pre-recession prices. They're just kind of floating there. Which is why my parents' houses are quarter, despite them being like two relatively well-paid professionals. It's like it's dragging. Like the American dream doesn't work for black people.
Yeah, and it operates at I mean, I was amazed. So when I lived in West Oakland, before I started this, I had a close friend who was a developer. He was kind of going out on his own, trying to do a thing. And getting invested, it was so obvious on the ground. But the type of people that control $100 million, you know, to do a construction loan are more conservative than the most conservative yuppie. You know, you don't get to control $100 million by like having original ideas or insight, you know, you do it by being a herd type of person. So anyway, so the other thing, this is the third thing that like really shaped my experience, was living in a city where population was continually dropping. Right? So Philadelphia was the best thing since sliced bread for like 100 years with a huge anxiety. And what does it look like when you lose more than a quarter of your population? This is what your city looks like. Mass abandonment. You know, and this block isn't totally abandoned. People live here, you know, but on either side, the houses are abandoned, fell down. This is Nicetown. This is between my neighborhood and the subway on my way to Center City. So, you know, you have you're just growing up like this. Like, you live and you're like, well, yeah, there's a lot of empty stuff, a lot of extra. This is just another one. This one's, I think, kind of pretty. Oh, this is another thing, too, sorry, is that, nature does not care about what you build. So, like, EIRs, I kind of laugh at a little bit, because I'm like, as soon as you guys walk away, wait 5 years. Nature's not EIR on your thing. The other thing is, too, is when people say a place is overbuilt, I'm like, I don't think you know what overbuilt is. If you build and there's people in it, it's not overbuilt. This is overbuilt. So in 2001, I had graduated high school in 2000. This was a huge victory, right? Mayor Street took office, and the city celebrated because he put together this $300 million fund to tear down 14,000 buildings. It's different, people's cities are different, but we're struggling in San Francisco, to build 3,000 houses per year. And our city was in a place, and this 14,000 was really a drop in the bucket. We needed to tear stuff down, that was our problem. And just that one, and Philadelphia's not all depressing. This is beautiful. This shows it's the most beautiful place ever. And this is beautiful. This is expensive neighborhood, obviously very dense. And this was all created without design review. So I do think, especially because this is a national audience, I really do believe that me starting to organize people and feeling strongly coming to San Francisco was because was very much a conversation between different parts of America. That there's a lot of parts of America that are like Philadelphia that we're losing population, and then there's parts west of the Rockies that are gaining population. But that what happened, my organizing was couldn't have happened without somebody from a city that was losing population, having that be our crisis, arrive here. And so my organizing in the Bay is very much like a conversation between those two types of cities, I think. And I think that we nationally, we need to try to figure out how to have this conversation. So NIMBYs sound like they're organized centrally because they have all the same talking points no matter where you go, but they're actually not. So it's not clear who would really talk to, but hopefully we can figure it out. One thing that's frustrating here in the Bay is that people don't really seem to realize we all really, get it. In some particular city, there's a fancy part of the city, a rich neighborhood, there's a poor neighborhood. But nationwide, there's rich neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods, right? Our rich neighborhoods are the Bay, LA, New York, and evidently, I think this is Oil Town in South Dakota. I'm not sure though. North Dakota. I'm sorry, you guys. So what this map is from United. What?
It's Sun Valley. It's a suburb of LA.
Oh.
Wait, what? Up here?
Suburb of LA.
Sprawl.
It's sprawl, yeah.
Let her finish.
So this is from UnitedForHomes.org, which is the website that the National Low-Income Housing Coalition put up to support HR 948. Woo! Write it down. Yeah, HR 948. Google it. It's a mortgage interest tax deduction reform bill. Because the mortgage interest deduction is a subsidy, basically for high-income people. Why are we doing that? And this is to show the percentage of mortgages over $500,000. So in these red areas, the percentage of mortgages over $500,000 is between 20 and 50%. And then the yellow areas are the second highest, and the dark blue is the third, and then turquoise is the fourth, and then gray is everybody else, where there's almost no mortgages. So this is the map I use to show, though, that that there's a lot of people in the Bay Area that feel like they're middle class because their house is like the middle cost. But you can't just compare to San Francisco because people are moving all over, San Francisco is a rich neighborhood compared to the rest of the country. This is another illustration. Somebody was tweeting about, Kid Rock is running for office. This is the $1.3 million estate where Kid Rock grew up. So luxurious, right? I was like, $1.3 million estate. Kid Rock, you think you're rich? Because this is also a $1.3 million estate. And this is just the first floor. This is a condo. You get half a house. And it has access to the backyard. It's nice. It has, you have a short walk to Dolores Park. But one thing I really feel, I don't know exactly how to make this intuitive and vivid to people, but I really want people to feel and notice that this is a $1.3 million estate, this is a $1.3 million estate, and it's not because there's something magic or funny money or anything, it's because in some sense they really are equivalent. You can get a lot of land and these markers of a successful life, like a tennis court on site, that's accessible to you, but if you live here, then you're far from a major economic center, or you could be close to a major economic center and you don't get as much land. But that it's a trade-off, and they're equally valuable. So please this year try to think about how to explain that to people, because I don't really know exactly. So it's only gonna get worse or better depending on your point of view. So what's happening, we have people moving from all of these places to the big cities because that's where the opportunity is. And maybe ordinarily, either, you would think that maybe people would go back to where they came from if prices were too high, if the incumbents were successful in not building housing, maybe people would just start to give up, and a lot of people do give up. But there are actual changes happening that I think would interfere with that. One is climate change. If it's true that parts of the country, there are some parts of the country like Florida, that are probably going to go under. There are other parts that are maybe become too hot to live in. Then places like the Bay that are temperate, it's just going to be more people wanting to live here.
It's only supposed to be a couple of degrees by the end of the century, though.
Who knows? We don't know, right? So that's one of the things, maybe. The other thing is, if our generation become permanent renters, then we're going to be a lot more mobile. We're not going to be stuck in any place because we bought there. And then the other thing is if permanent changes in the economy might create permanent freelancers, right? If you're changing jobs, we thought when the internet was invented that it would allow people to work remotely, but what we're finding is, I think the opposite is the case, that if you are hustling, and if you have many jobs or many clients, it's so much more important for you to be in close proximity to people because you have to be networking. You have to show up in person. So this is Google later, The Nature of the Firm, which is an incredible essay which predicts that as transaction costs go down, as it becomes easier to find and identify the people with skills, and it is now, that you need, that the idea of the firm, just working for one place forever is going to become less and less relevant. He wrote that in 1937, and I'm amazed every day watching it kind of come true. So this is the last, this is actually the fact, right? There's only one fact in this whole presentation. But this is another thing that I think is really mind-blowing. It's the kind of fact that can maybe start to make a person, shift their point of view. So the people that were born in 1960 are 57 now, right? The world population has more than doubled since they were born. Doubled. And so these are the people that are, kind of the age range that are fighting, building new housing. But if you think to yourself, when I was between the time I was 8 years old and now, the world population has doubled. Ask yourself, has the population of my community doubled? And if not, why not? Knowing that there are places like Philadelphia and the Rust Belt and, Buffalo, and where the population has gone down. There are other places where what you should expect is that your neighborhood has more than doubled. There are places, obviously, where no one was living, and huge cities have been built that are, absorbing this, mostly in other parts of the world. But yeah, if overall the population has doubled, then you have to ask, has my area doubled? If it hasn't, why not? And why am I entitled to live somewhere that's not, building like its share of housing and absorbing its share of population and race? So thank you very much, you guys, for caring about this issue and working so hard. And in particular, no, you know what? Actually, I want to have this is the recognition part of the thing. I want to recognize the person that came here from farthest away, our London UB guy, and is also from the place that's had this problem for the longest. So I'm reading from something that was published in 1668. Oh no, 1665 it was published. It's a little bit of a boring quote, which is kind of the point. In the years 1660 and 61, there ought to have been built above 26,000 houses in those 25 years. Oh, he was talking about, never mind, the previous 25 years, which is above 1,000 houses a year to lodge this increase, which are much more than have been built. For it appears that Mr. Morgan's map of the city, there have not been built in this time 8,000 houses. That is not 300,000 houses 1 year with the other. But this is certain that there are no more houses built every year than there are occasion for, because there are tenants for those houses when built. Could have been written yesterday. So I don't know if this is encouraging because you're part of a conversation going on for 400 years, or discouraging because you might realize that in 400 years we'll still be having this problem. But yeah, so everybody that put this together, I'm just going to read everybody's name. So you got to applaud the entire time, okay? Victoria, Kieran, Jesse, Libby, Martha, Ernest, Adriana, Tim, Andrew, Watson, Ray, Josh, Aaron, Darcy, Callie, Isaac, Oz, Ethan, Estelle, Skylar, Hillary, Sarah, Zoe, Shane, Ashley, Walter, and Milo.
There's like 30 people.
Oh, and Milo, can you tell me who won? The moment here's the envelope, please.
Beaver.
Manchester by the Sea. Just kidding. Beaver. It was Beaver. That's it. Turn us off. All right.
That's it. Thanks for coming. Go home.